Good morning, Drew. How you doing, buddy?
Good morning.
Good, Barry. How you doing? And it's always rich to be on with you too, Coach.
Drew, update us on recruiting football-wise. They had the commitment from Cameron Latu. I think that brings them to 8. Just kind of talk about where recruiting is. I know they haven't had as many commitments maybe as they usually do. I don't know if that's planned or what's happened there. Just kind of update us. What kind of player are they getting in this Cameron Latu?
Well, he's one of the better edge pass rushers in the country, guys. He's a guy that Tuscaloosa has identified at the beginning of the cycle last year. He had been a BYU commitment from Salt Lake City, and I know Utah was after him heavily as well, USC, Oregon, just about UCLA, a lot of those, and Nebraska. That kind of was his top group once he decommitted from the Cougars. But he's a guy, he's in the 6'3", 6'4" range, 235 pounds. I wouldn't be surprised in the future if he ended up getting up to 265, 270, and end up a defensive end. But again, he was really impressive at the opening in Beaverton, Oregon, and I just consider Cosby Boy probably the top young defensive coach in college football as far as the combination of recruiter and evaluator and then coach. And I think he was the guy that Tosh identified early and got Coach Saban onto this kid. And he made 3 trips to Alabama, starting with A-Day, and then a couple of more during the summer. And when you think about coming 2,000-plus miles, that shows you how interested he was in Alabama. He pretty much, by the second trip, and then when he came to the Champions Cookout the final time, everybody felt like it was just a matter of days of when he decided to go public. And Latu's a big piece of the puzzle. And then before that, Slade Bolden. He's a guy that at the last camp in July, he really put on a show from West Monroe, Louisiana. And Brian Dable, the offensive coordinator, kind of stood up on the table, so to speak, with Coach Saban. And I think he really wanted Bolden. He thought he was a Julian Edelman-type slot receiver, and that's why Slade Bolden, who was probably headed to TCU before that camp performance, ended up choosing the University of Alabama. And I think, Slade Bolden's a guy who ran, in the 4.5s. He's had really good, quickness drills, the cone drill. He's a very, very quick kid. He may not have breakaway speed, but he's a savvy kid who is going to be a problem, I think, especially on these short to intermediate routes, which I think are going to be emphasized in his offense by Coach Dable.
Does Alabama really recruiting quarterbacks? Or I know they're looking. Are they? Where do they stand with that? I guess is the best question. It's quarterback situation.
Well, Coach, I think right now they're still looking at Tanner McKee from Corona, California, who will go on a 2-year Mormon mission. But I think the one to watch, because he came to camp and did a really nice job, and I think his mother and father, may want him to stay closer to home, is Emory Jones from the state of Georgia. He's committed publicly right now to Ohio State and has been for a good while. But Alabama made a lot of inroads with him and his family during his last camp visit, also in July. He threw the football very, very well, and I think right now, if you had to look at someone that's committed to another school that could be a flip candidate for Alabama, I think it would be Emory Jones. He's more of a dual-threat style quarterback with a really good size, and ironically, they're loaded in the state of Georgia this year when you think of Trevor Lawrence, who's committed to Clemson, Justin Fields, who's most people believe it's Georgia, FSU, Auburn, and then with Emory Jones, that's probably 3 of your top 5 quarterbacks in the country. But Emory Jones has kind of gone silent now since that trip to Ohio State after the camp performance at Alabama. But I would still watch Emory Jones very closely. I think Alabama has given him a lot to think about after his camp performance and in the relationship he's been building with the staff and especially Coach Dable.
That's good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, Drew, you see any other commitments coming up here before this season starts, or will they kind of set with what they got? There's probably a bunch of guys they could get to commit, but they probably have their tier guys and they want their top guys before they go to 2, 3, or 4. Do you see any other commitments coming up here in the next month or so?
Very, very easily I could see that happening. There's a kid today who there's been some buzz coming out of the weekend that Jarrett Bell from Norco in California, who is an offensive guard center prospect, who at Alabama's last lineman camp in July performed very, very well in front of Alabama's coaching staff. That he's going to commit this afternoon at some point. Alabama is very heavily involved with him. I'm still trying to see if right now if he's a for sure take for Alabama. Coming out of the weekend, I was told by a couple of people that may very well be the case. So, we'll see what happens with Jarrett Bell. He's got some Pac-12 offers, Arizona, Washington State. I think Oregon may have recently offered him. So we'll see where Jarrett Bell, where he chooses today. That could be a guy to watch. And then also before the season, later in August, I think Asa Martin from Austin and Decatur, the running back, he will be committing August 24th, the day before his season opener for the Black Bears. I think right now Florida took Damian Pierce this weekend, who is a former Alabama commitment at running back. I think right now, if you had to ask me, I think Asa's top two would be Alabama and Auburn. I slightly lean to Alabama, though Auburn is heavily involved with him also. And then another young man to watch that could easily commit before his season is another Utah product, another costly point find, and that is offensive guard and right tackle prospect Penei Sewell from St. George, Utah. There's a lot of rumors that he may want to go public before his high school season. And I think Alabama and Oregon are the top two for him. Most people believe Alabama is solidly in the lead because they made a big-time impression on him when he camped in June, and his family kind of fell in love with Alabama, kind of like Tua Tagovailoa the year before. So, and I think Tua's family has taken a big-time, assist in this recruitment with the Sewells. But I think Penei Sewell, Asa Martin, and then we'll see about Jarrett Bell today. Alabama could add a few more pieces and be, around that 10, 11, 12 mark, be about halfway home, a little over halfway home in recruiting before the season starts.
Drew, it seems to me like in what I can read and find out that Jim McElwain in Florida have bounced back pretty good recruiting-wise. Kind of evaluate that for me.
Yeah, Coach, there's no question about that. I mean, Coach McElwain has won the East his first 2 years in Gainesville, but the recruiting had been above average but not elite. And I think he decided to make some changes on his staff. Jeff Collins got the head coaching job at Temple. They bumped up Randy Shannon. Randy Shannon, I think, had a lot to do with some of the hires they brought in. They brought in Brad Davis from North Texas, who is a great young coach and recruiter on the offensive line. They brought in Juwan Sider, who has a lot of ties to the state of Florida and in South Florida, especially in Miami. Sider had a lot to do with Damian Pierce going public this weekend. So I think what they did, they juiced up their recruiting. They definitely knew they had to, get some guys in there with some ties to South Florida. I mean, as good as Miami has been in the past, they basically recruited the Miami area, South Florida, and Dade County, and I think that's what Florida thought they could make some inroads there if they made the right hires. I think without a doubt they've done that in the last couple of couple of years with some of the coaching changes that Coach McElwain has made, especially Sider, who is known as he was at West Virginia getting a lot of good players for Dana Holgorsen, and now he's in the process of doing the same thing for Florida. And I think that you'll see it even more next year because Florida's 2019 class is off to a really, really strong start.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Drew, Alabama basketball, let's talk about this coming recruiting class. I think it's important to have another great class. They don't have any commitments yet. They got Tevin Mack there, and it's basically like a recruit. He's there practicing. Be like getting a junior college guy, and I don't know that they could even sign a guy better than that if he'll keep his head on straight. But where is Alabama basketball recruiting? I know it's a down year in the state, but will they be able to have a top 15, top 20 class this year when it's all said and done?
I think there's a good chance, Barry. I think just talking to some people around the program in the last few weeks and kind of who they're zeroing in on, in the state, Trey Jemison is a guy they've offered, but I don't think, I think the post player who's now at Hoover, I don't think he's going to be a take ultimately for Alabama. Myron Jones, who has been at Huffman High School, is now transferred to a school in Georgia. He is someone that they looked at, but mainly this year they're concentrating on the state of Mississippi. And DJ Stewart the other day committed to Mississippi State, but in a way that could be a good thing for Alabama because one of their top targets is Robert Woodard. He's from the state of Mississippi. He's, of course, a legacy to Mississippi State, but there's a lot of people that think Alabama and Antoine Petway and Avery Johnson have made a lot of headway with him. Robert Woodard would be, probably their top overall target, along with another state of Mississippi product, Javion Fleming, who just recently tweeted out his final 9, so to speak. But most people I speak with think Javion Fleming from the state of Mississippi, the big man, 6'9", a true back-to-the-basket center. They think Alabama is probably in the strongest position for him, though you can't discount Mississippi State. Georgetown's in there, too, with their new coaching staff led by Patrick Ewing. But I think Javion Fleming and Robert Woodard out of the state of Mississippi are probably their top 2 targets. And then with Yasmir Roseman, Coach Yah coming in, they think they've got a good shot at Tavon Moore from Westgate High School in Georgia. Of course, the Florida Gators and Michael White are in there, too. And of course, Georgia with Philip Pearson there doing a nice job recruiting. Tavon Moore is probably on that top line as well. They'd like to sign 4 guys. And the 4th player is a point guard, much like they found Colin Sexton a couple years ago and got ahead of some people. A kid out of the state of Louisiana, Jared Butler, is their top point guard target. He's starting to kind of blow up. He's been offered by Virginia. He's starting to get some schools that are, heavily pursuing him. Now, LSU probably won't because they took Javonte Smart the other day, who's a 5-star kid out of the state of Louisiana. But Jared Butler, Javion Fleming, Robert Woodard, Tavon Moore, I think that's their top 4 guys. They'd like to sign 4 to go along, as you said, with Kevin Mack's transfer. If something happened to one of those 4 and they didn't get one of those guys, I think Will Richardson, another combo guard out of Georgia, would probably be the next guy up. But they're really concentrating on Georgia and Mississippi in this class now that the state of Alabama isn't that strong in 2018. But as you know, in 2019, they really like Kyra Lewis out of Hazel Green High School in my area, and then Brandon Watford from Mountain Brook will be one of the top 15 players in America.
Yeah, when will Watford? When will he commit? You think he'll be a guy that would commit early? Or will he? I know he's just a junior now. Will he wait and play this thing out into next year?
I would. My gut tells me, Barry, that he would probably still sign next year in November, especially if Alabama has a really good year. And if they have a good year and they make an NCAA tournament run, there's a lot of buzz around the program, and it continues the way it is now. And I think there's no question about it that Trendon Watford could commit and sign in the early signing period. I know a lot of the top 20 guys are starting to wait till April, and I even heard that about Robert Woodard, a kid, the 2018 target. But now I'm hearing he may pull the trigger sooner. But again, I think overall there's a good chance that Avery and the program continue to go in the direction they are and return to March Madness. I could see Trendon Watford signing next November. And a year from this November, and that would be huge for Alabama because I think he, much like John Petty, he's a guy that would send a huge message across college basketball that Alabama is going to be very tough to come into the state of Alabama and get an elite player away from Avery Johnson.
Yeah. Lastly, we had Avery on Friday, and I don't think who starts really matters this time of year. He said he was probably going to start different lineups. He knew who he was going to start in the first game over there. I'm just betting that he starts the veteran guys first, maybe with Dazon Ingram hurt and not playing. Maybe one of those freshman guys will start, but I think he will eventually get to where some of those guys get on the floor. What do you see there as far as him, who he starts over there in Canada?
Well, I think you're right. I talked to Antoine Petway Friday on my show, and he just said that they were going to work on some different things. He said that was going to be totally Avery's call, of course, but he feels like they're probably going to start 3 different lineups. And I think eventually you're going to see the backcourt of Colin Sexton and John Petty, be the starters. But he's probably going to give, Armand Davis some minutes. Armand, I thought, shot the ball really well during the open practice the other day. And with Dazon Ingram doubtful to play during the trip, and he's just going to travel, you're going to see a lot of Riley Norris at the small forward. I mean, he's a veteran anyway. As Antoine said, you know exactly what you're going to get from Riley Norris. He's going to give you everything he's got. He's going to be in the right place at all times. And then I think you'll see that they're going to experiment and see kind of the twin tower look with Daniel Giddens and Dante Hall. I continue to be really impressed with Dante Hall's progress offensively and the work John Pelfrey's done with him and the confidence he's playing with. And I just think really when I saw Giddens for the first time on the floor and the way he moved and his skill set, I mean, he reminded me of one of Coach Sanderson's old big men who was so athletic, such a great shot blocker, finisher around the rim. They may decide to take a look at the 4 and the 5 with those two on the floor at the same time. And then they have to kind of see where Braxton Key fits in. Is he going to play the 3? Is he going to play the 4? And it wouldn't shock me if he and Riley Norris were both in the starting lineup tonight. Just really looking forward to it, though, and seeing this team play, because I think after watching Galen Smith and Herb Jones and Alex Reese, they're all going to contribute in some form this year, in my opinion. I think this team, I don't know if they'll go with a 10-man rotation. We've heard Avery talk about 7 or 8 guys, but I think there is the opportunity there to have a 10-man rotation. I think now the roster has come so far from a talent standpoint. I think Alabama at some point could go 10 deep with quality guys that you can play in the SEC and win basketball games.
Yeah, we'll see. I think they open up tonight, so we'll see how that goes. All right, Drew, tell everybody where they can find you up there in the upstate. Appreciate you being on with us.
Yes, sir, and it's always an honor to be on with you and Coach. And you guys can connect with me at our Twitter account for our station at 977ESPN, or at my personal Twitter account at DrewD977ESPN. My show is 9 a.m. to noon called Talkin Ball in the Rocket City here in North Alabama. You can hear us throughout the North Alabama area all the way to Coleman if you're on your way to Tuscaloosa. So please, tune in. We always love the interaction on Twitter and with the listeners, and it's always great to be on in Tuscaloosa. And thank you guys for the opportunity once again.
All right. Thanks
a
Drew.
lot,
Have a good week.